Hi, this is Minnie-lee. Welcome to State of Africa. Today we're going to be talking about the way us Africans are depending on the Western countries for help. I'm sitting here with Debbie Steinman from Uganda and Sylvia Demleitner from Uganda as well. So a few weeks ago I posted a video on my Facebook where there was a lot of white folk collecting aid for Cyclone Idai. And Debbie made a very good point when she said that once again the West comes to rescue us because we had this disaster, and unfortunately us Africans don't help each other much. So most of the times the West comes to our rescue. So this is the topic that we're going to be tackling right now. So Sylvia, you have an African marketplace where you showcase African designs and African arts, and you are very pan-African. Can you just share a little bit more about that?
Thank you so much for inviting me on your show. I'm very happy to be here. So as Africans, we don't need to depend on foreign aid. We need opportunity in trade to help ourselves in the long term, to make sure that we as Africans can compete on the international market, because we have a lot of talent in Africa. We have very hard people who are hardworking, but we don't have the same opportunities as the people in the West. So what I'm trying to do is build up a platform that gives opportunity to African designers and vendors to showcase their talent in other African countries
and all over the world too.
Yeah. Because I think that's what we need, we as Africans. We need opportunity, a long-term solution that is going to help us as a continent. Because the aid is a short-term solution. So
it doesn't really help. You get 2 liters cooking oil, within 2 weeks it's finished, now you need more.
Yeah.
So, Debbie, you're very passionate about this topic, which is the reason why I invited you. And I know that video touched you a lot for you to actually say that here we are again, we have a disaster and the white man comes to the rescue.
It's very interesting. It was a very interesting situation. Obviously, it happened during the time of cyclone, which I wasn't aware of. At the time it was posted, I only got to know about it later. But what caught my eye was the fact that it was held again, and it was already publicized. It was majority who were white, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with providing somebody a plate of food or clothing. But then it's just a kind of concern, because to us it's very normal, and we feel it's normal, and we feel that charity is very okay. We don't want to go a step further. We are so comfortable that every time there is disaster, we are not prepared, and we are going to expect it from someone, somewhere. But then what happens tomorrow if that help is not there? So I feel that we've gotten so comfortable that when it comes to Africa, foreign aid is okay, but we don't want to get a step further or open up the economic institution so that we can find ourselves in a better place and we don't have to rely on aid all the time.
You know what I find very funny is African countries are very rich. We are rich in mineral resources, we are rich in land, we have very fertile lands, we have animals, we have everything that we actually need on this continent. So does it make sense that we have to wait for a tiny country, which is probably the United Kingdom, to send us millions of money for us to actually survive? Does it make sense?
No,
if you actually think of it, somehow it doesn't make sense. Look at Zimbabwe, for example. I'm Zimbabwean. And you guys are from Uganda. I'm sure you have a lot of minerals in your countries as well. You have a lot that you can use. But then who comes to rescue us? people that are far away, and yet we have countries, surrounding countries, that are not doing anything about the problem next door.
Even the government themselves. So foreign aid has advantages and disadvantages, and charitable aid is okay because it helps people who are hungry or poor people who are dying of hunger, but it doesn't free them from the governments that are actually causing them poverty. And what we need is better leaders who think of their people.
It's funny, what you're saying right now is what she said.
Yeah.
You said our governments need to be organized.
Yeah, and I think aid in Africa, well, I'm going by, for example, Uganda, it's not really used for the economic incentive. It's more actually for political, maybe for political strategies or to empower themselves more than actually empowering the people whom the aid should go to. Like recently, of course, there was a scandal sometime in Uganda where there was a lot of aid given, and it was just in the hands of the Prime Minister at the time. And a few years later, of course, he was able to use this for his next campaign. But still, nothing was done, you know.
Okay, so the guy receives aid, sits on it until it's campaign
Yeah.
time. Then he uses it to buy votes by handing out the aid that you got to help people.
Yes, and then
Oh my
when the money comes in, it feels like they are doing the people a favor by giving them just the peanuts from a lot of money they get. So people feel like it's actually a big favor that they are getting this help. So it's not used for like economic development, like the roads whereby the poor farmer can be able to transport his. It's more for political strategies. That's what I think.
Okay, I'm going to pick your brains a little bit. Why do you think Western countries are always coming to the rescue? Even if there are a lot of African countries surrounding whatever country is having this tragedy. So when we come back, we should just look at why. I always feel like maybe they feel guilty about colonialism, that's why they help us.
No, I don't think they do.
Hi guys, we are back with our conversation on State of Africa. So we were talking about why the Western countries are always sending us help, even though we are rich on our own. So we're about to hear from Sylvia. Your thoughts on that?
The foreign countries, mostly European countries or the US, are always sending help to poor countries or poor continent, mostly Africa, because they want to build diplomatic relations, because it does help them in return if they want to trade, to strengthen their trade relationship with a country. Or
Okay, I was saying maybe they feel guilty that they colonized us.
No.
And now maybe it's their way of giving back and saying, okay, we forgot you.
I don't think they feel guilty. I think it's a way of strengthening diplomatic relations so that when they need anything in the future, it helps them as well. So aid benefits the person who's giving aid and the person who receives it. So if aid was going to the right people, it would benefit the continent. But it doesn't, because it actually increases corruption among the political leaders, and it doesn't get to the right people who actually need help. That's why aid can never eradicate poverty in Africa, because the poor people don't get aid. So aid given to a country, let me say Uganda, is maybe going to help the president's kid go and give birth in the US, or a minister who is sick to go and seek treatment in Germany. But it's not going to help the poor people who really need that aid. But then it strengthens the relationship between the country
So
that is
it's-
receiving aid and the country
Okay.
that is giving
So,
aid.
and bottom line, you're saying it's all politics. It has
Mostly.
nothing to do with the people. It is.
It mostly is. It mostly is because I'm giving you an example of other African countries. There are countries that really need aid, but they never get aid. They never get aid.
You know what? This morning I was watching a video of my own president, happy about receiving letters of, I don't know whether I should say condolences or we are with you because of this whole cyclone. And you were so happy that the Queen, the Prince, and the other Prince wrote him letters. And you were saying Trump sent him $2.5 million for aid for the cyclone relief. And I'm thinking $2,500 is not going to do anything to the people that were affected by this disaster. It's just going to be used maybe as campaign money
Yeah.
on the next election.
Yeah.
Because people, like you're saying, people are not going to get
Yes,
this
aid in Africa doesn't benefit the people who need aid. It benefits the political leaders, the people who are in government. That's why there's a lot of corruption. David just told you about a Ugandan prime minister who received a lot of money, and he just kept that money for his own reasons, for his own political reasons. So it never benefited anyone.
Do you have different thoughts, Debbie, on why the West sends us aid, even if they know that we have our own resources and we don't depend on them?
Yeah, I think of course it's got strings attached, you know. I don't think you would just continuously release millions, the same government you accuse of being corrupt, the same government you accuse of staying in power for long, are the same government
True,
you're
that
using.
you're always funding,
So
sending
exactly,
money to.
so it's got a lot of strings attached. Perhaps I'll send such and such a millions of dollars to your country, and then maybe I can utilize such and such amount of your resources. So definitely it's more for their interests, you know. Why is it that most countries, like let's look at Congo, one of the richest countries
Yeah.
in the world,
Yes.
and the war just never ends, because
never ends.
if they destabilize the country, then it means
It's easier for them
it's
to
easier for them
benefit.
to access the. So really, AIDS. Africa has been receiving AIDS, I think, since we grew up. But
the beginning.
where is
Yeah.
where is the progress?
the
Really,
beginning.
up to now,
Now
where is
it's
the progress?
helping
And I
us.
think
Yes.
the more a country gives aid, the more powerful it is, and then the more a country receives aid, the more inferior it is. So that's why we are always the inferior people who needs charity,
That's
and
the-
we just welcome aid, but we really don't know that it just makes us the poor, the needy people.
Okay,
so
those
it
people
makes the
are
one.
not stupid. Well,
course.
they're not stupid at all, because if you look at it, we know that we live on the richest stretch of land in the world.
Yeah.
But we want to understand, like, why are you always helping us? So they know that maybe all the companies that are operating here are English companies, French companies, German companies, American companies, and they're taking a lot out of Africa, a lot more than the aid that they give us.
Yeah. And
That's why I was saying maybe it's just a slap for us to look the other way and be like, they're helping us.
And then obviously the aid also keeps us in debt, you know. And
Yeah.
so we just have to, we are always in debt, you know, because it's
Yeah,
got strings
true.
attached and maybe higher interest rates, so we just can't get out of the debts, and then there we are, we need more
That's
aid
the other
again.
thing, like
so.
we owe the World Bank and the IMF lots and lots of money. And then if you think about it, how do we get into that much debt when we have the minerals that they take to the West? So a lot of young people have died trying to cross the sea into Europe,
Yeah.
wanting to live their life. And I know that both of you guys have lived in Europe. How was it as a black African woman living in Europe?
Well, I heard, I had just left university, and I had started a job telecommunication, but obviously I got the opportunity to move to England, I can tell it was not a bed of roses. It was like, it's not exactly what you think it is.
It's not home.
No,
It's
no,
not
no,
African.
no, it's not home, and I just felt
Yeah.
you will make some little money, yeah, but you're tied in the system and you cannot get out of it. They are so clever that you're in the system and you just can't get out of it. In Africa, I think we have a lot of freedom. Yeah. But because everything that you do, the money comes in, but it really goes out, and you really work hard for it. So sometimes realize you're not even saving anything, but you can afford rent, you can afford a meal, but you just can't get out of that. You're trapped in the economy. And the jobs, you'll be happy with working as a carer, you can just forget your degree may not really apply. You just have to start all over again. And I think there's more freedom here. I have the choice to go back, but Africa is beautiful. You just need to tell our friends, children that it's really beautiful here.
Welcome back to State of Africa, where I'm sitting here with Debbie and Sylvia. So we were talking about how they've lived in Europe, and the perception that people had of Africa was just not right. And the perception that young Africans have of life overseas is just not what you get there. Now, Sylvia, you're about to tell us about your experiences and your thoughts on it.
I wanted to give a little bit, to shed a little bit of light about the immigration crisis that happened a few years ago. I think it's like 3 or 4 years ago, where most young Africans were actually desperate to go to Europe. And those are Africans, are the young people who could make a difference on our continent, because they are educated.
Yes.
And the poor people in Africa don't even know a lot about Europe, so they wouldn't say, I want to go to Europe and make a better life for myself. But these are young, energetic, educated Africans who can make a difference on the continent.
Able-bodied people.
Yeah, but because of the economic system and the inability of our leaders to deliver services and create jobs and fight corruption, so the young people are really desperate that they can do whatever it takes. It doesn't matter if they die trying to cross going to Europe, they'll still do it because they're desperate. But if you're educated, you want a good life for yourself, because maybe you grew up in a poor family and your parents struggled to really take you to school, you got good education, you have a dream. So if you're in a state that does not allow you to exercise your rights, that does not give you opportunity to follow your dreams, then you get desperate and you decide, okay, I'm gonna do whatever it takes, because what I hear, I can make it if I go to Europe. I can make it if I go to the US. So that's why you see very many Africans are so desperate to go abroad. But if we had leaders that actually think about the generation and who deliver services to their people and who fight corruption, then we wouldn't be having all these young people who have ability to change the continent, going in Europe to work as cleaners, because the jobs that you get in Europe, it doesn't matter whether you have a PhD or a master's degree. You're either going to be a cleaner. You find very many Africans washing dishes, and that's why, as an educated African,
washing old people's
if you go to Europe as an educated African, people think, oh, you need a job, you should go in that restaurant, they're hiring, you can wash dishes, because that's the perception that they have, because people are desperate to the extent of saying, I was a doctor in my country, I studied law, my parents did everything they could to educate me, I have nothing to give back to my parents. There's no equality in the system. We don't have equal opportunities. If you don't know anyone in the government or in a private sector or in any system, you're not going to get a job if you're from a poor family. So people are so desperate that they actually say, I'm going to go to Europe and do whatever it takes. I'm going to be a caretaker. I'm going to wash dishes and make my dreams come true.
Okay, I want to ask, how do you guys feel about those handouts that we are always looking like we are the poor cousins of the world that have to be receiving clothes, money, aid all the time? Something happens, we don't get anything from our governments, even though they have a lot of money and they're traveling in nice private jets, they live in beautiful houses, but then we are always getting aid as well because they can't manage the country's funds.
Okay,
So how do you feel about that? I know that like our mothers don't have a problem with it. It doesn't affect them. They are happy to hear that the Queen sent us bags of clothes. But to us,
yeah.
I think it's the reason why we are undermined. I don't think we are really undermined maybe because of our skin or everything. Well, it could be, but the real reason is because we are the needy ones. We always look inferior because it's always in the news if something happens in Africa, always bad news.
Things.
So just people relate the bad stuff, diseases, they relate poverty, all that is related to you. So I think it makes us to be really, really undermined, not because of how we look, but because we're always the ones who can't do anything without help. It just doesn't feel good. Like it's just the same thing when you're walking down the street and there's always that person who is always begging. Even though you give that person, you're not gonna feel good about that person. You don't even want to associate with that person because it's the needy one. You'll be happy to help,
but then the funny part of it is our presidents travel around the world asking for money
because it benefits them. It benefits them. It doesn't get to people who need aid. So aid benefits people who are in power to fulfill their political agendas, and that's why I think aid will never eradicate poverty in Africa. We need long-term solutions. We need economic development as a continent. We need fair trade. We need to be able to sell our own African-made products to other countries, to Europe, to the US. So we need trade. We need to work together. We don't need the Western world to help us with aid. We need them to open opportunities to the continent so that we can actually work with
go
them.
there and learn and bring back some skills and then improve their communities.
Because the young generation is a hard-working generation, and they've traveled a little bit, and they would like to change the perception about Africa, the poor continent, the needy continent. But still, you find that it's very hard to get the same opportunities as someone who lives in Europe or someone who lives in the US, not because they're better than you, but because of where they come from. And that's what we need. We need the Western world to open their doors to trading with Africa, not give us aid. Because
what would you say you'd want to see our leaders doing? Because I feel embarrassed every time my president announces that we got so much from this country. I'm like, can't we do something about our country and get that money on our own?
I think when you on average, I think Africa's got the youngest population in the world. That's why, although there was this war in Syria, Germany was able to welcome because it's obviously clear that the older generation, on average, they have such a small percentage of the young generation, so they're able to welcome this. But Africa, we have almost 75% is 35
young people
and below. And this is going to double. But really, these young kids, they've got to be really empowered, they've got to be supported. But I'm not so sure. Look at our president. He's going to be maybe 80.
He should.
70. He must be doing more to stay in power.
He
must be doing more to stay in power. But there's a lot of unemployment of the youth. This is like 75% in Uganda is below 35. and
Yes.
unemployed.
It's the
This is
same.
gonna be a
Zimbabwe
disaster.
too. It's the same.
Yeah.
And I think our generation is full of dreamers. It's full
Yes,
of
it
people that
is.
want to do things for
Yeah.
themselves. We are proud as well. That's the other thing. And we want other people our age from other continents to look at us as equals, not as those needy
Yeah.
people.
Oh, that
because
is-
it's,
that doesn't
for me, it's
feel good.
embarrassing. I feel
I
so
always have to,
embarrassed.
when I go, I'm in Switzerland, at least I get an opportunity.
Mm.
But sometimes people kind of keep a distance, but when they get a chance to
really
be around, then it's like you have a lot to prove. You know?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
in the-
Yes.
or
Yes.
normally it's like they don't want to get near you, they just have this picture.
I think you're gonna ask for
But
money.
then you always have a lot to prove, and then they get an interest to associate with you. So it's not a good tag to feel needy. It really, really doesn't feel, and that is at the expense of some leader who is interested in them.
Yeah.
Anyway, any
income.
last thoughts to you, Sylvia? We have to wrap up.
Africa as a continent, we have potential. We have young, hardworking people who are really talented. But to me, I don't think that we really need aid. We need opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes, we need opportunity to trade with other countries. And that has to be done by our leaders. So our leaders need to think about the young generation. So they don't need to think about their political ambitions because that benefits them. So we need better leaders, and we need to educate our people that the person you actually vote into power affects you in every way. Affects you from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. The roads you use when you're going to work, the food that you eat, because it's maybe going to be expensive or it's going to be, like everything is determined by the people we vote into power. And we have to educate the young generation and let them know that we need better leaders for our continent, because what we are going through right now as a continent is not because we don't have the potential, or we are a poor continent, or we cannot work. We can work, but it doesn't matter whether we work 24/7 if we don't have better leaders who think about their own people and say my people, and they plan for their people and deliver better services. And know if something happens around here in my people, I'll be able to do this and help my people. I won't need I won't need the American government to come and help me. I have to take care of my people. Those are the leaders that we actually need to make a difference and change the perception of Africa.
Anyway, that was a great conversation. I'm sitting here with Debbie and Sylvia, and unfortunately we don't have enough time to talk this out.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you so much for having
Yes.
us.
All right, people, thank you very much. Catch us on the next episode. Bye.
Is he playing on the